Hey everybody, go ahead and state your gender and your pronouns down in the comment section down below so we can have a fun, educated conversation about some stuff that's going to really piss you off. Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about pronouns, gender, and a bunch of other stuff that's going to be super cool and super fun. And I know you're going to listen because I'm a cis male. Isn't that fun? You're going to listen to a heteronormative cis male. That's going to be super cool, talking about trans people and pronouns. Man, this is going to be such a fun educational day. I'm going to give my unprompted opinion, and you're going to get mad at me because you're going to say I'm uneducated on the topic, which I probably am, but it's the internet, so I love giving my unprompted opinion. Let's get started. So I've been seeing a lot of these specific TikToks floating around very recently. The microlabels and neopronouns don't actually harm the LGBTQ community. They're going to hate us regardless, which is true. Neopronouns and microlabels, they actually really don't harm anything. You want to go by Faye or Faye self or Zer self, they don't really do any harm to the LGBTQ community in any capacity. I think people are just upset because they're having to expand their definition of things when they felt like they already understood something. I'm understanding that very deeply, and I've seen this one a lot. I think white people like to microlabel their mental illness and neopronouns in an attempt to marginalize themselves so they can remove themselves from their guilt. I also agree with this. I agree with this point a lot. This is very cool. Now, I'm not gonna, because this may get a lot of hate to these creators, I'm actually not gonna specifically shout them out, because I feel like a lot of people may go to these pages and cause a lot of issues towards them. So this is the one time where I won't actually shout out people. I usually do, but I'm not going to do that for this video specifically. Neopronouns and microlabels allow people to better express themselves, shouldn't be looked down upon, especially in their own community. Very true. Very true. This is a very true thing. I agree with this. Also, neopronouns and microlabels should be a thing, and then the person says shut up about that. That's also true. But then you'll hear people that give their unprompted opinions. Also, all these pages have like less than like 8,000 followers, and they're not at masters of this. They're just giving their unprompted opinion. Please remember that everybody on the internet, especially on TikTok, are giving their unprompted opinion. And then microlabels are not a necessary part of the LGBT community, only exists for people not fully comfortable in their sexuality. Then there are people that say stuff like this. And then it's just inflammatory stuff of that variety. Call me woke, microlabels aren't hurting you guys, they're just ignorant, hating your community, and that's also true. They are. Now, but you can't call yourself an ally and hate on neopronouns and microlabels. Now, this is super cool. This is very awesome, and this is very fun. This is called the pure. This has gone too far, and this is called the Puritan test. When you've gone too pure, what you want an ally to be. This is what it is. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, I'm showing you this to show you the opinions on the internet and that I'm not making it up. Whenever I bring up stuff like this, people think that I'm like making it up. And the reason I want to talk about this is mainly because of this video I saw right here. Because of the he-him lesbian dilemma is what I'm discovering here. Or the trans man lesbian, the trans man being lesbians. I want to listen to what this person had to say because I think their points are very interesting. And I just want to listen to them before I say my own points. I chaptered the video so you can skip around. So let's go ahead and listen to this person and what they have to say.
Lesbian debate was over until I saw a video made recently in which this woman said that if you think you could both identify as a trans man and a lesbian, that you're a TERF. That you're perpetuating TERF ideologies if you're defending it, and you're a misogynist, and you don't respect the sanctity of women's faces, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is just so dangerous to say. Firstly, I want to say if anyone's the TERF here, it's the person who is saying that a trans person should be excluded from a queer space.
So this is super cool. The reason this is even a talking point in any capacity is because people think when they hear he, him, lesbian, they're hearing that a trans man doesn't want to be with trans women. It's a very specific thing. People say that that's what they're hearing, right? That's a whole thing. It's very, very interesting. It's a whole thing. Also, I think a trans man can be a lesbian. That point, to expand that point upon that, is that well, if you're a man, you're a man, you can't be a lesbian. It's a whole thing. It's very interesting on all 7 sides of this, because it's not just a left or right, up or down. It's like 7 sides to this whole debacle,
which is actually exactly what you're saying when you're calling other people TERFs. I also don't understand what the purpose of debating this is, unless you personally are maybe struggling with can you both identify as he, him, and a lesbian, because beyond that, it's literally just you arguing about whether or not you have the right to invalidate other people's identities, because that's literally what you're arguing over, people's own personal identities. And I guarantee you don't even know one person who identifies as a he, him lesbian, because it's not a debate over whether or not when you see a trans man with his girlfriend, can you call them lesbians in your mind? No, because that's actually not your choice to give them that label. That is something that you give to yourself because those words fit with you and you feel at home in those words. So who
This person's a genius. I just want to point this out. I will shout out this person specifically because they're actually goated. Just Piers is goated. That's just actively stating banger after banger after banger. I have no disagreements with anything that they're saying. They're actively explaining it to the greatest degree they could possibly can.
Who are you, really, to sit there and say that if you are a trans man, hey, spoiler alert, I guarantee that trans man identified as a lesbian before. It's not like someone transitions to be a trans man and then is like, oh my god, let me get me into lesbian spaces for the very first time in my life. No, guarantee that person identified as a lesbian before. If you did not know, in 2025, it is scary and it is dangerous to transition. You will not be greeted with support. You will lose people in your life. So why, in your mind, is your idea that if someone decides to do the hardest possible thing that they could do so they could better their life, that as a consequence, they should lose the queer community and support system that they had prior because they go by new pronouns? The thing about this argument is I don't think it's about pronouns. Like, I don't think this person who is saying that you can't be he, him, and a lesbian, if they were to meet someone who uses he, him pronouns, but hasn't medically transitioned or etc., isn't on T, maybe has longer hair, would you kick that person out in that instance because they use he, him pronouns? Or is this really more tethered to a whole thing of appearance and how you think that someone should look when they identify as a certain gender? I also think that when people make this argument, it's because they're seeing lesbianism as just like exclusively being like woman and woman together, and it being so tethered to gender in that way. When really, if you do some research, and I'll say I don't identify as lesbian, I identify as queer and non-binary. I've been trying to read a lot of Judith Butler's books, which is what a lot of my knowledge of this comes from, not trying to take up space that is not mine, but Judith Butler, in their books, they basically talk about gender as this concept that is a performance, and something that they point out is gender. Think about that word that we use, gender. It's gender that we say, it's singular, because the way that gender was set up in our society was not to be like man and woman. No, gender is that there is men, and men are full human beings, and their brain's important, and they're important to society, and then the gender's woman. Gender, the only gender that exists, is not being a man. That is what it is. The whole idea
It's like it is a very big thing with society where we have othered women. We have very much othered women in totality. We have othered them to a separate category, because even the term woman, man, right? Literally man, right? Because we got it reminds me of the statement, you know, he may be black, but he has the heart of a normal person. It reminds me of that. It's very interesting to see that mindset and ideology. Oh, this is a black person, and this is a person over here. We're all people, we're all persons, but specifically specifying within that range of thing, that prefix, that wool, that part is the part that gets things. And obviously there are differences in the sexes, right? There's difference in the sexes, but gender in itself is a wild performance. There's roles within gender, and that's what this person is harping on as well. This person is really, they're smart as hell.
Is for us to live in a society where there is a patriarchy, there needs to be a reflection of everything that society has deemed that a man isn't, which is what woman is. Woman isn't defined by anything other than its lack of not being a man. Now, obviously the way I'm talking about this is very binary, but you know what I mean. So, if two men are together in a sexual way, they are both considered real people in society. Is being gay taboo? Yes, but those are two humans. Those are two people who have defined roles in societies and ways that they should act, etc. But when two women get together, they're not really seen as being a whole human being in the first place. They're not really defined by anything beyond their perceived lack. So when two basically not men are together in a relationship, there is no role. There is no set dynamic. There is no form that they have to follow. There is no idea of what either person in a non-man relationship even needs to look like. And I know that there's more books about this in queer theory, but you could make the argument that anyone who is not like a cisgendered man is or could be considered in some way, shape, or form a lesbian. Now, this isn't me saying this to say if you're bisexual that you should call yourself a lesbian, because don't do that. But being a lesbian is not defined by anything. There is no definition of what it is to be a lesbian, of what it looks like to be a lesbian. There's just not.
So this goes into the expansion of definitions. Now, if you're a woman or a female that really loves only women or females, there's also a gynosexual, which is a sexual orientation where a person is attracted to women, females, and other femininity. There's also there are terms for this. Now, you may be saying, and I want to point this out, there's a phallosexual, in which you're attracted to just the penis. There's also that. And I want to tell this right now. If you are confused about any of this, if you are absolutely destroyed by all of this, good. Now that we've gotten a baseline of how we can start the conversation, I can actually give my actual opinion on things. Who's ready to get mad? Pronouns do not equal gender. Let's start right there. Let's just start at the basis there. That's a whole thing that we have to discover and understand if you're talking about how people view themselves in the general society within the LGBTQ community. You can't have she, her gays and he, him lesbians. You can have that because pronouns are basically what you feel like you are. That's why we have things such as face, fae, and face self, and zer and zerzem. We have that. As soon as I heard that, I immediately discovered that pronouns do not equal gender just by the sheer existence of neopronouns. Now, before you say you hate neopronouns, I got you. I'm here for you. I'm listening. My ears are open. I grasp it. But I want to point this out. Neopronouns are cool for your friends. If you know the person, it's great. Here goes the issue. We can communicate with everybody all at once right now. We can give our unprompted opinion about everything. I think most labels for instance, you have no idea how I feel outside of YouTube. No clue. You have no idea. You only know what I told you and tell you on the internet. So when it comes to my personal feelings about a lot of things, you only have an idea of what I might believe and hope that I align to what you believe. But you don't know, right? You have no clue. You can only hope that I agree with most things that you agree with. I need people to understand that before everything else. Every conversation starts with people assuming they know everything about a person based on a few words in a bio. You can be a man and use she, her pronouns. You can be a woman and use he, him pronouns. You can be non-binary and use whatever pronouns feel right. Point is feelings. That's it. Feeling. You need to feel that. To feel what you are. And if you can't prove a feeling. You can't. That's why it's so important with this things. The entire point of breaking the binary is understanding that language and identity are not chained together in the rigid way many people think them to be. You are the master of your own universe. You are the only person who has to wake up every day and live your life. The world you experience is filtered through your perspective, your own feelings, your own understanding of yourself. No one else lives inside of your head. No one feels what you feel. No one else has walked the exact path that brought you to what you are. Their confusion about your pronouns is not your emergency. You don't really have to, this is going to sound crazy, you don't really got to explain it. You don't really have to. You just got to feel it. And if you feel a certain way about something, good. That's great. Now here goes the fun part. You want to explain it, okay? You want to explain it real bad. You want people to understand you because that's the part of community and understanding. You don't want to feel ostracized. That's a little bit of a problem. Understand it to your friends and know that the greater bulk of the world may not understand where you're coming from. I could tell you time and time again that olives are amazing and I love them and they're really cool and you should eat olives. But if you don't like olives, you're not going to get the point. I know comparing food to gender identity is defeatist and a little bit reductionist, but that's how people feel about it. That's where people start and end, with preferences and opinions. That's the greater bulk of how people operate. And I need you to understand how the world outside of the community thinks about us. I really need you to understand that. The issue I keep seeing with things like he, him lesbians and she, her gays is that people immediately jump to the conclusions, right? They hear the term and instantly decide they know exactly what it means. A he, him lesbian is not automatically a trans man. A she, her gay is not automatically a woman. The internet has developed this strange obsession with taking one piece of information and constructing an entire identity around it. Human beings are wildly more complicated than that. And this is, if you are a regular Joe Schmo, you don't have to care about any of this stuff. I hate to say that. I really do. But sometimes a pronoun is a pronoun. Sometimes a label is a label. Sometimes people use words because they best describe their lived experience and community rather than feeding neatly into someone else's definition. The definition is not the person, right? And I do agree that in some capacities, we do need agreed upon definitions. I have a little bit of, I'd say a bit of a reductionist personal take. I'm going to say it here because it makes sense to me. And if anybody wants to combat me on this, I'm open to discussion and having my mind changed, as you see me do on this channel multiple times. So let me explain this. I think it is smarter to expand a definition rather than to create new ones. I think by creating new ones, you end up reducing the base definition. For instance, when I see a man that's feminine, that is a man that's feminine. But some people want to say, well, that's not a man that's feminine. Well, that's a trans woman. Well, what if that person doesn't identify as a trans woman? What if they identify as a man that's a woman? What if he just identifies as he? What if he does that, right? What if he does that? You want to assume, the assumption part is what gets me, right? And because we have made so many assumptions because we want to be correct so bad, we have ruined the idea of expanding the definition, and we have created new things. I'll give you an example, right? I have a friend who desperately does not want to be society's idea of a woman. This is my anecdotal experience. Please note that. So, they identify as, guess what? You guessed it, non-binary. And because they identify as non-binary, they constantly say, oh, I'm not a woman, I'm non-binary. I'm outside the binary. I don't want to be society's idea of a woman. And they simply identify as non-binary simply by virtue that they do not feel attached to the gender idea of being a woman. Now, they still feel like a female. They go to doctors and, get disrespected all the same as most females do. They still feel that. So they identify as she, they. This specific person, because of how they feel and because of their complicated experience, has gotten to the point where they identify as she, they. But they would prefer I use they because they say they are a female non-binary. That's what they say. Their gender is non-binary. Their sex is female. That's how they are. That's how they feel. Now, I know intersex people whose sex is intersex. Now, whether that dominates, skews more male or female, I'm not going to say, because they identify as intersex. But they use the pronouns all. Any pronoun's fine. Because they have a lot of stuff going on down there that, I personally don't know about because I'm not intersex, and that's very specific for specific things because people are different. This is the minority of people, but they are still people. We should talk about the minority of people because they matter too. People desperately want identity to function like this specific math equation. Humans aren't math. Math is my favorite subject because it has exact definitions that I can deeply understand immediately. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Pretty cool, isn't it? But when you get to 3 times 3, that gets to 9 because you're timesing something by its intrinsic value of the second one. The first gets multiplied by the second and continually forward. You can reverse those two, but you're still going to get that and total over and over again. It's really, really, really cool. They want one answer to always lead to another answer. People want a chart, a flow chart, a guidebook that explains every person they will ever meet because humans refuse to cooperate with that idea. We are weird creatures, dude. Contradictory. And this is so important. Just because someone is a Democrat or on the left, let's get into politics for a second, doesn't mean they won't eat at McDonald's. Just because somebody is a Republican doesn't mean they agree with pro-life. They might be pro-choice and a Republican. They might hate guns and be Republican. They just might not like gay people. You ever considered that? That's the whole thing. Because there's so many different issues within the ideas of certain groups that everybody doesn't have to agree with everything within that group. I know Republicans who are gay because and you're probably thinking to yourself, why are they gay and Republican? They should be well, they like guns and they like the idea of limited government. There are people like that. There are people. Want to know why there are people like that? Want to know why there are people on the left that really like gun laws? You want to understand that? Why there are gay people that are for some reason pro-life? You want to know why? We contain thousands of influences, experiences, cultures, histories, and feelings all at once. Language struggles to keep up with how complicated people actually are. Language is simply noises we agreed upon that have specific meaning. That's it. The struggle is not the failure of the person. The struggle is a limitation of language. And we have such a limited language. English is so limited. There are other languages that have words for this stuff. Oh my God, there are other languages that have words for this stuff. They just do. They just do. I'm going to butcher these pronunciations, so please bear with me. Saudade is Portuguese. It is a deep longing for someone or something that is absent, mixed with nostalgia and affection. Fernweh, the opposite of homesickness, an ache to travel somewhere far away. Hurayef is a homesickness for a place you can't return to, or perhaps a place that never actually existed. Mono no aware, awareness that all things are temporary, crafting a bittersweet appreciation of beauty. Sehnsucht is German. It's an intense yearning for an idealized future, place, or life. Litost is Czech. It's the emotional pain that suddenly comes from realizing your own shortcomings. And this is a Yaghan. It's man, this word is tough. Mani hi api lapa tapai, the look shared by two people who both want the other person to do something neither want to initiate. One is Finnish. Kalsard kanik. I don't know. I'm very bad at this. Getting drunk at home alone in your underwear with no intention of going out. Tartle. It's the Scots. The hesitation you feel when introducing someone and suddenly forget their name. Forliskit. The euphoric feeling of falling in love before the relationship settles into reality. Moraki, which is Greek, putting a piece of yourself, your soul, or your passion into something you create. Petitor is from Greek roots, is coined in English science and borrowed internally. The smell of rain hitting a dry earth. And this is another Japanese one. Komoribi, sunlight filtering through the leaves of trees. Shunnen yoku, forest bathing, is Japanese as well. The feeling of immersing yourself in nature to restore yourself. Yugin, which is Japanese, a profound awareness of the mysterious beauty and vastness of the universe. And this is Dutch. Gillekijkheid, a warm atmospheric comfort, coziness, companionship, and belonging. And I do a lot of research, by the way, to learn a lot of stuff. I don't say the pronunciations correctly, but I know what the words are. One is Inuit. The feeling that makes you... Oh, sorry. It's the word, the culture. The word is Ikatubrapok. The feeling that makes you keep checking outside to see if someone has arrived yet. French, l'appel de vide, the call of the void, the strange intrusive thought to jump from a high place or to do something dangerous despite not wanting to. Sundoku, acquiring books and letting them pile up unread. This is Indonesian, Jesus. Jesus, a joke so bad and unfunny that it somehow becomes funny. Schadenfreude, pleasure derived from someone else's misfortune. Ubuntu, which is Nguni language in Southern Africa. I am because we are. The idea that personhood is formed through community and human connection. Sisu, Finnish, is grit, determination, and courage in the face of overwhelming difficulty. Dunde, perhaps Spanish, a powerful emotional force in art and performance that leads people on a deep level. That moves people on a deep level. Wabi sabi, appreciation for imperfection, aging, and impermanence. Lagom, Swedish, not too much, not too little, just the right amount. So there's this very, very, very specific ones and languages that we just don't have in our language. We just don't have words for them. It's very important to know that we don't have all the words for a lot of stuff. Language was invented to describe things. Language was not invented to cage things. Now, if this is confusing to you, good. No, seriously, good. I'm glad it confuses people because now I can finally get to my point. Confusion is not oppression or violence. It's not an attack on your existence. The world is filled with things you do not understand. Every single person on earth encounters an idea they have never heard before. The problem begins when people decide their confusion is more important than another person's lived reality. The confusion is yours to sit with. You do not get to demand that their life recognize itself around your comfort. Comfort is not a right. Comfort is something you build for yourself. You do not build it by asking other people to shrink to your definition. The first thing I want to state is that all the infighting about people's preferred terms is exhausting. You do not know these people. Are these your friends? Are these your cousins? Are these your coworkers? Do you see them every day? Most of the time, the answer is no. You are arguing with strangers on the internet because we have become addicted to sharing our opinions. Everyone feels entitled to give commentary on someone else's identity. The truth is that most of the people involved will never meet each other. They are yelling across an endless digital void, trying to convince strangers that their understanding of someone else's life is more valid than the person actually living it. Do you grasp that? Do you get that? I imagine many people are testing things out. Maybe they use Zizim. Maybe they use Fafer. Maybe they use Zerself. Maybe they use a microlabel. Maybe they abandon it 6 months later. Maybe they keep it forever. That process belongs to them. Well, because we want to share our growth online, people get to see that experience and they get to comment on it. Self-discovery has never been a clean, straight line. When I stopped being a gangbanger, I immediately became a Republican. Which seems a little bit strange. I did the near opposite of what I was supposed to do. Then I went back to being, a decent human being after becoming a Republican, despite being broke. How am I a broke Republican? Republicans basically thrive in being rich. Don't know how that happened. It sucked ass. And then I finally became, I guess I would be a center-left kind of person, is where I'd be. If you want to put me somewhere politically ideological, that would make sense for a lot of people. Center-left is where I'm at. The idea of the fake moderate is where I'm at, is where people would put me at. I don't agree with everything on the far left or the Democratic parties. I don't. I like guns. I agree in pro-choice because pro-life is just anti-choice to me. I agree that Gaza is getting annihilated right now and we should care about that kind of stuff, but I also think we should focus and centralize on one specific issue. There's many things to a person you will never understand. That process is slow. It's how it works. Human beings experiment. They grow, they change. We celebrate exploration in almost every aspect of life. Travel, food, careers, hobbies, relationships. We try things, we see what fits, we adjust. Identity is the only area where people suddenly demand wild certainty, where people act like their certainty is a crime against the other person. The crime is pretending that you have never been uncertain about anything in your life. I think what's funny about this whole thing is that most of the people getting angry will never have to interact with these individuals in any meaningful capacity. I would never use those pronouns. Cool. I would never be friends with someone who used that label. Cool. Keep it to yourself. Learn how to sit with a thought and not immediately broadcast it to the world. The internet has convinced people that every opinion deserves an audience. Some thoughts can simply stay inside your head. That is a skill, a valuable skill, one that seems to be disappearing. I don't get that. My point about microlabels remains the same. They help people be specific with their friends and communities, and if they can't be specific with their friends and communities, why even do it in the first place? They tell that opinion on the internet of microlabeling for their community, right? The community is supposed to talk about it and work with it. They help people describe experiences that broader labels might not fully capture. We don't have the words for it. I'm not talking about forcing microlabels onto everyone you meet. The world is not going to memorize every term. Most people will never care enough to learn them all. That is reality. What matters is that within communities, friend groups, people have the language that helps them understand themselves and each other better. The language is not for you. The language is for them. You do not have to use it. You don't have to like it. You do have to stop pretending that their use of it somehow is harming you. I think we need more patience. Real patience, because education requires patience. I want people to educate me, but a lot of you guys don't have the patience to educate me because I don't understand things immediately. That's why I learn it myself. That's why I try my best to talk to people who are very good at teaching me. I speak to people who have written books. I speak to people who are scholars in these fields, and I try to learn things from them. Growth requires patience. Understanding requires patience. And a lot of you guys want to shame people for some reason. Shaming people rarely creates understanding. Mocking people rarely creates understanding. Screaming at people rarely creates understanding. If someone uses he, him, lesbian, she, her, gay, neopronouns, microlabels, or language that feels unfamiliar to you, the sky is not falling. The earth continues spinning. Humanity continues moving forward. People continue trying to understand themselves. The process has existed for as long as humans have existed. I think we should all be a little happier, and we would all be a little happier more so if we spent less time policing strangers and more time figuring out who we are ourselves. I think that's important. You do not have to understand everyone. Just let them exist. Letting people exist is free. It costs nothing. It takes no energy. The energy people spend arguing about someone else's pronouns can be used to learn a skill, read a book, call a loved one, or take a nap. All of those are better uses of time. All of them are far more productive, and all of them leave the world a slightly better starting place for everybody. Don't start another fight on the internet. I would wish for you to choose differently. Now then, you guys can all educate me and tell me where I messed up in this video. I tried my best to choose my words correctly. I don't write scripts. I just speak free-handedly. I probably said something wildly insensitive. I don't know. Please don't be mad at me. I beg of you to just talk. Just talk to me. Have a conversation with me. That would be much more productive than shaming me or saying I did something wrong within the video. Just speak to me like a person. Do not insult me. That would be lovely. With that being said, if you guys wish to help me, I have a GoFundMe currently right now. I don't know how well this video is going to do. I don't know what I'm going to title the video. I have no clue. I have no idea what I'm going to say in the video when it comes to titling. But hopefully this video reaches the right people, which is mostly the LGBTQ community. I wish to speak to you people specifically. That'd be great. Be lovely. Oh, that would be cool. Very cool. I don't know yet. But don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I have a GoFundMe for my foot and the fact that I need to leave this city because it's trying to kill me. I was hate crimed recently. Sucks. Hate to see it. So yeah, if you're curious about what I am, I'm an asexual, bisexual, cis male. That's where I'm at. That's who I am. With that being said, I'm out. Peace. Bye.
I'm your Nick and Night, be my Laurel low. Happy to try what you need. Your world, I love to live in it. I love the ride when you're free.